everyone. Appreciate everyone being here. My name is Brad Koch, and I am the major over the Recruitment and Training Bureau. Today we are going to review the crime statistics through the third quarter of 2022, going over important trends throughout the city of Charlotte. Our department reviews statistics daily, weekly, and monthly to help inform not only our enforcement efforts, but also to develop targeted responses. Now, prior to getting to the crime stats, during the past year, Chief Jennings and the entire Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department have focused on two major priorities. First one is combating violent crime, and the second is recruitment and retaining of our officers and telecommunicators. And I want to speak with you on the recruiting efforts here at CMPD before we get to the third quarter crime statistics. Our department is currently about 300 officers, sworn officers, short, and this should be a concern for the city of Charlotte. We have done a great job of not scaling back any of our enforcement or services that we provide from this shortage, but it's putting a strain on not only our department, but also on our employees. Now, there are several new initiatives and existing initiatives that I would like to highlight. And starting at the beginning of this past spring, the department started offering a $7,500 hiring bonus for new officers. This past July, starting pay for officers was increased by 9%. Equating that to money, starting officers without a four-year degree earn just shy of $51,000. If you have a two-year degree, it's about $53,000. And those starting with a four-year degree earn just under $56,000. And starting in January of 2023, officers working second and third shift, which are our evening and overnight shifts, will also earn a shift differential of an additional 2.5% on top of their current rate of pay. We also offer a 5% pay incentive for language proficiency in 15 different languages. We've also simplified our application process. There are just 6 easy steps that you need to go to. And this process is open 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We're also promoting more educational incentives. We do pay for collegiate education reimbursement, so those individuals who do not have a 2- or 4-year degree can go to school and get that and then earn the fruits of that labor there through increase in their pay. We've also most recently updated our grooming standards to allow for tattoos and facial hair. And finally, we take military police, and that's essentially the same requirements as an out-of-state officer. We do ask that if anybody has any information, you can always reach out to me. You can also reach out to any of us on social media, and I encourage you to follow our recruitment Instagram page at CMPD_recruitment for information and upcoming recruiting events. Now, that's all I'll say on the recruitment at this time, and now I will turn it over to Major Ryan Butler, who will go over our third quarter crime statistics. Major Butler.
Morning, everyone. Appreciate y'all being here with us today. Again, just to frame this will be the statistics for year to date through the third quarter. I know that statistics can often be dry, but what I really want to emphasize for your listeners, your readers, anybody who follows on your apps, every number that we talk about represents one or more victims in our community. And while we always strive to reduce our crime, there's no level of acceptable crime numbers because, again, every number that we talk about represents someone in our community who's been victimized by crime. That being said, we will be sending out, following the briefing from our public affairs team, a detailed list of all the numbers that we're discussing this morning. And also just to provide some context, you know, Charlotte is a vibrant city, a growing city. Our population continues to grow, and subsequently, so do our calls for service. Year to date, through September, citizen-initiated calls for service were up over 2% from last year. with an additional 5,800 calls for service. On a positive note, we have been successful with violent crime reduction efforts, with violent crime being reduced almost 5% through September compared to 2021. Property crime, however, is up almost 7%, and overall crime increased 4.5% through September. Aggravated assaults, I can positively report, were reduced 7%. Particularly of note, aggravated assaults involving a firearm were down over 10% this year through September compared to 2021. Sexual assaults, which you may remember we saw a big increase in reporting coming out of COVID, have been reduced almost 20% year to date. That decrease in violent crime is a tribute to the exceptional work of our patrol officers conducting proactive and preventative patrols and targeted operations conducted by our investigative units, solving crimes and holding repeat violent offenders accountable for their actions. There are two violent crime categories that are on the rise this year. There have been more than 1,100 robberies, up 6.5%, and 85 homicides through September, an increase of nearly 27%. We know a lot of these crimes are driven by firearms, and we've had over 800 firearms stolen from car break-ins, and a total of over 1,200 firearms stolen from all crimes through September. While I can report that our larceny from autos are down this year, over 1%, securing property is still a critical strategy that we ask our community members to partner with us on. Nearly 2,500 guns have been recovered by our officers this year through proactive efforts. CMPD exhausts all resources when it comes to combating violent crime, whether that's an increase in patrols in targeted corridors, utilizing technology such as our real-time crime center, and partnering with local businesses to address safety and security concerns. A tremendous resource for us has been the Crime Gun Suppression Team in targeting violent crime. In 2021, with gun-related crimes on the rise, CMPD merged 3 of our units with a history of success in addressing violent crime initiatives. That was our Targeted Response and Apprehension Team, our Gang Unit, and our Shooting and Occupied Dwelling Task Force. The Crime Gun Suppression Team specializes in gun crime and targeting repeat violent offenders. So far in 2022, that team has made 199 arrests, seized 193 firearms, 23 of those having been reported stolen, and they have seized $743,000 in cash that had been involved in criminal operations. The Crime Gun Suppression Team has been an incredible resource in our crackdown on gun crime. This year, there have been nearly 2,500 firearms seized as evidence, a 10% increase over last year. One example of the work that the Crime Gun Suppression Team is doing involves a series in late September that occurred in 2 of our divisions, Eastway and Steel Creek, that resulted in the seizure of 7 firearms. Armed robbery detectives were investigating a series of cases where criminals had been targeting Hispanic community members, leaving check cashing businesses. As the suspects would follow the victim's home, they would rob them at gunpoint. Through surveillance, detectives were able to identify a suspect vehicle, and on September 26th, the Crime Gun Suppression Team conducted a traffic stop on that vehicle in the Freedom Division. 3 suspects were detained and 3 firearms were seized from that traffic stop. A further investigation took them back to an address where they conducted a search warrant. During the search for evidence, they ended up seizing an additional 2 handguns and 2 rifles. 2 of the suspects ended up facing felony charges linked with these armed robberies. While our Crime Gun Suppression Team and division staff are tremendous professionals, we always need the community's help in solving crimes. As we always remind you, please have your viewers, your listeners, your readers, feel free to contact us anonymously through Crime Stoppers, 704-334-1600. They can do that through the phone, and then they can also send us tips through our P3 tip app. Turning now to property crime, which I mentioned is up 6.8%. Larcenies are up just over 3%, but we have had a decrease in our shoplifting cases of 4.5%. I believe that's in large part to the efforts of our Organized Retail Crime Task Force. That is actually a regional effort that's led here at CMPD. A recent case from September began as a shoplifting investigation and resulted in the arrest of a chronic thief who was charged with 13 offenses. 6 of them were felonies. 3 of them were for violent gun crime, including a case where he was followed and videotaped by a citizen, and he turned and fired his weapon at that citizen. That person was willing to step forward, shared evidence with us, and allowed us to move that case forward and resulted in a successful arrest. Auto thefts have also increased 17%. This has partially been exacerbated by social media challenges, which not only encourage the behavior, but also teach individuals on how to successfully engage in auto crimes. Burglaries are also up 22%, with an 8% increase in residential burglary and a 41% increase in commercial cases this year. I'm going to turn it over to Major Foley to go into detail on several of those cases. Major Foley.
Thank you, Ryan. Good morning. I'm Major Brian Foley. I'm with the North Patrol Bureau, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police. So when we talk to you about crime stats, we frequently highlight violent crime because the nature of the crime itself, a victim, a weapon, sometimes injury, those things draw the attention of our media. But in addition to that work, we also concentrate on many other crime types. And oftentimes those crimes are not known by the public very well and not covered by the media well. So I'm going to talk to you about commercial burglary. Commercial burglary encompasses a whole series of different kinds of crime. It can be something as simple as somebody walking into a store through an open, unlocked door, or breaking into a store and stealing merchandise. It can be something as significant as people who are conducting long-term, heavy movement of things like appliances and tools. You've seen Charlotte's growth. Anyone who's watching the broadcast knows how much we grow, how much construction is going on. There's a hidden cost that comes with that construction, and it affects not only the people who are building the buildings, but also the people that outfit those buildings, and then eventually you, the buyer, when you come in to buy a home or you go to rent a property. Past few months, CMPD noticed several trends, and Major Butler talked about some regional trends that we've seen. We see that our commercial burglars, our commercial bad guys, don't just stay in Mecklenburg County. They frequent outside our county lines, and the work that they do is often undercover in the night, and it's very, very down low, surreptitious. So they don't want you to see what they're doing. But the public has been our eyes and ears, and they've allowed us to get some significant leads and helped us to identify a couple of suspects. So I'm going to highlight some cases for you. Back at the end of August, we noticed that several vape and tobacco stores were being burglarized across the jurisdiction. Frequently, that was because the person would come up and throw a rock or some other object through the front glass window or door of the store, go inside and target cigarettes and other materials from inside those stores. You see those vape stores, they are pretty much everywhere. And so oftentimes, when those businesses are burglarized, officers respond to an alarm, but by the time we get there, those suspects may be gone. So it's really critical that both business owners, our neighboring business owners, anybody that has cameras and surveillance, when you see our officers out there working these cases, we're going to come to you and ask you for help. Thankfully, we got some of that help. So after identifying 5 different cases in August, September, and October, our crime analysis unit, which is a group of civilians that analyze crime as those reports come in, worked with us, our neighboring jurisdictions. We found 3 related cases from other neighboring jurisdictions that we thought were related. Our crime scene search team and our investigative units began working these cases very heavily. Through some great detective work, we identified an individual named Tamarius Springs as a suspect. We signed warrants on him, and he was arrested by the crime gun suppression team. So that team also, in addition to doing work to take guns off the street, will help us to serve warrants on individuals that if we need additional resources and to bring additional manpower to bear, they're available. So they do some great work. Tamarius has been charged with 4 cases so far. We have a 5th case still under investigation. The other jurisdictions included Mint Hill, Cornelius, Pineville, Waxhaw, and Moreau. So you see the scope of where these folks are willing to go and how often they're willing to do this work. Springs was arrested October 5th and is still in custody under 14 charges and under $103,000 secured bond. We appreciate the assistance of the magistrate's office and also the district attorney's office on these cases. Frequently, we see individuals committing many, many felonies. It takes a lot of work, and sometimes that's hard to digest on the prosecution side of the house, so they do a really good job, have been helping us with these cases. The second example that I'll talk to you about involved appliance theft. Whether you know this or not, when you go to buy a property or you go to rent a property, frequently they come with appliances. Appliances are expensive. And believe me, thieves know this. There is a black market, a pretty extensive black market in the resale of these items. When you go online and you go to whether it's eBay or any other website and you see items that are for sale at substantial discount from what they would be retail, be warned. You are probably dealing with something that could be stolen. That happens quite a bit. This market, basically, they will steal the items, resell them back to the consumer, sometimes resell them back to a distributor for use back into another property. So be warned, do your homework. If you see things that you feel aren't right, you need to contact us. As we talked about, Crime Stoppers, give us a call and let us know. It affects everybody because what eventually happens is it drives the cost of the rent up, it drives the cost of the appliances up. So those costs, you're gonna feel it whether you like it or not. Cheaper is not always better. Detectives from CMPD and neighboring departments began to notice that suspects were using box trucks, stolen box trucks. These are U-Hauls or Penske trucks. Those trucks are generally pretty nondescript, right? You see them everywhere. You see them riding around during the day, moving things. People rent them to move their own apartments. But when those trucks are rolling at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a reason. People aren't moving from their homes at 3 a.m. We had some witnesses and some other folks help us. We had some commercial property management folks work together with us to gather evidence that showed that the trucks were being used to facilitate the thefts, and we determined that the trucks themselves were being stolen. We've worked very hard with dealers across Charlotte-Mecklenburg to talk to them about how they secure these vehicles to keep them from being stolen. The trucks were being taken and used to facilitate the movement of the appliances during burglaries, and then stored and then moved to the next place and the next phase of their distribution and resale. Thankfully, technology has helped us. So we have used some GPS technology. Both we and the property managers and property developers are using this technology, and we were able to track some of these stolen appliances back to many storage facilities in the North Division. Additional search warrants were developed, conducted. We conducted several raids. Appliances were seized, and we determined that those appliances were linked to an individual named Colby Brown. Mr. Brown, with the assistance of Huntersville Police, was located on a traffic stop, and there was evidence on his person that linked him to stolen vehicles and then also back to the stolen appliances. Detectives were able to then locate an additional mini storage warehouse which had 18 stoves that had been stolen from an apartment complex in University City. So when I say 18, that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's a general number of how many we see stolen in each of these kinds of thefts. So do the math. If you think a washer-dryer combo is $1,500 times 15, you start to see how this flow happens and why it's so lucrative to the bad guys. Colby Brown, at the time, was charged with possession of stolen property. Detectives worked for days and days and days. We had teamwork between our divisions. We had teamwork between jurisdictions. He was later charged with an additional 17 counts of burglary, larceny, and larceny after burglary. Brown was arrested on September 22nd and is currently in custody on over 100 charges related to these investigations, which are continuing, and thankfully has a $200,000 secured bond. These cases are a few examples of the great work that's being done by Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police, and we also want to thank our local law enforcement partners and also our internal crime analysis and crime scene search personnel that work so very hard to help us build these cases and bring them to successful prosecution. We sit up here and talk to you about crime and how to basically work with us to prevent crimes from happening. The same thing applies to burglary as it does for larceny from auto. We want you to have an alarm. Cameras are also very good, but you got to be able to use them and record video. Just keeping your eyes open is really the key. When you see something that looks unusual, if you see a box truck rolling through a neighborhood, a newly constructed neighborhood at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, that's not normal, and you need to call us. Just give us a call. Just call 911. We're not going to tell them who called, but that may alleviate a big theft and a big burglary and something that's impacting us. Lighting after hours, and I really want to talk about the developers and the folks that are doing these properties, building the properties. They are really important partners for us. So CMPD will be reaching out to you as you build so that we can talk to you about how to work with us to keep yourselves from being victimized. So I'm going to go ahead and then relieve this story, and to discuss some recent arson cases, I'm going to hand off to Chief Fire Investigator Edwin Shaver. Mr. Shaver.
Good morning, everyone. Just introduction. I appreciate the introduction. My name's Edwin Shaver. I'm Chief Fire Investigator, Charlotte Fire Department Fire Investigation Task Force. Just to touch a little bit on our unit, we are a combined unit primarily consisting of members of Charlotte Fire Department and the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department arson unit. We also are supplemented with the assistance of the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation as well as the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. We work together, like to look at some positive stuff that we've done over the past several months to help combat the arson increases that we're talking about this morning a little bit. There have been several cases in the past several months where we have been able to make just a few arrests that have contributed to the clearances of multiple fires, where we're finding people are setting multiple fires over a course of period of time. We're able to make just a couple of arrests that have cleared out those cases. In addition to that, we have also, with the assistance of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, have brought in a accelerant detection canine, big canine captain. He is utilized as a tool to assist us in fire investigations. He can be deployed to any part of the area outside of the city of Charlotte to assist with any other jurisdictions as needed. All you have to do is contact the fire department to get his assistance if needed. As been stated earlier, there does appear to be that there is a approximate 25% increase in arson cases from this time last year. Just like to look at a couple of causes behind why we think these might be increasing. As we've seen in the news, there is a mental illness crisis that is come forward in the past several months that has been a contributing factor. Domestic violence, crime concealment, and also the increase in vagrants and squatters in the city limits that have contributed to the cases, increased cases of incendiary fires in the city. Like has already been mentioned, if you have any information in reference to any fires in the area, feel free to call Crime Stoppers. You can be anonymous. And hopefully we can, with that information, we'll be able to clear out a few more cases. I'd just like to thank both CMPD detectives and members of the Charlotte Fire Department who put forth a lot of hard work and dedication to help clear out some of these cases, which has contributed to approximately 30 to 40% clearance rate that we are maintaining and have maintained over the past several years with these cases. Even though there has been a slight increase in fires, we are still able to maintain a relatively high clearance rate through the dedication and determination of both agencies. So I'd like to thank that. And that's all for right now. Thank you, Major. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief. Now, despite Charlotte's booming population and more businesses and people continuing to return to work from the pandemic, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department is only seeing modest increases in overall crime. Now, the decrease in violent crime is a particularly good sign that our strategies and initiatives are working. We still have work to do, though, particularly with homicides and property crime on the rise. As Major Butler mentioned, we will make sure that we share all this information and statistics with you shortly. We encourage you, everybody up here has mentioned that, anyone with any information can call at any time and speak with Crime Stoppers at 704-336-1400. And with that, on behalf of myself, Major Butler, Major Foley, and Chief Shaver, we will open it up to any questions that you may have.
Is there any background you can provide at this time regarding the false threats that were made to CMS schools recently?
The threats made to CMS.
Yeah, Hugh High and Cornelius and North Mecklenburg High.
Is that anything you guys can speak to?
Sure, I can speak there real quick. Something for the media to understand is that we have school resource officers that are distributed into Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, but also other jurisdictions share that responsibility. So schools that are in Huntersville, Pineville, Matthews, those departments have their school resource officers that are embedded into those schools. When we do get threats, that information is shared. We have intelligence gathering that occurs. We work together with Charlotte-Mecklenburg School Police to validate and verify. We take each of these threats extremely seriously, even if there's no validity to them. So we want to continue to have the public bring those to our attention. Oftentimes what we see is a social media post. That social media post will be validated and verified that it's not an actual threat, and then that same post will be modified by someone else and put back out again in a very short time frame, sometimes to that particular school or sometimes to another school. Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools are not the only ones that this happens to, so we have private entity schools here across Charlotte-Mecklenburg that are also affected by this. It's an unfortunate thing that occurs, but students and students' families need to be aware that if you do this, you will be disciplined. There will be outcomes for this. There could be criminal charges. There could be charges through the school system that relate to your expulsion. It's not funny. It's not something that you need to do. Don't do it. We'll keep the media posted when we get these threats and when we're assessing these kinds of pieces that occur within a very short period of time. But again, I'd like to let you know that it takes us some time. We have detectives and other portions and components of our investigative process, so it takes some time to communicate between agencies. It takes time to validate those potential threats, and so then it takes a little bit of time for us to communicate with you. So just be patient with us. We know that time is of the essence. Parents get really concerned and worried about that, so safety is our #1 priority. Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools are the same way. Their police department, same thing. Safety of students, safety of faculty, for parents is #1 priority. Thank you.
Major Foley, while you're up there, can you say which apartment building was affected with the 18 stoves taken away?
So it's, if you've seen the number of complexes that we have a significant number that are under development. At least in University City, I can probably count a dozen. Those are being developed by different companies. So at this point, I don't have that information in front of me, but if you'd like to follow up with me later, I can do that. We see both townhomes and apartment complexes being affected by this. So even single-family residential construction can be affected, but it's primarily multifamily because it's much easier for suspects to get a large number of appliances at a single go when they go into those kinds of properties. So again, we work with timing a lot. So when we have developers and people that are coming in, we want you to talk to us. We want you to tell us, this is where we are at this level of construction. This is when we expect things to be securable, when we can lock buildings and have doors and windows in place, and then also work with us on how we track and control your appliances. So when you put those things in, we're looking at serial numbers. We have GPS equipment. We have surveillance equipment. When we have those things in place, we're very successful at preventing theft, but also at catching bad guys, just like I talked about, and putting them in jail. Thank you.
Thank you, Major Foley. Any other questions?
Do you have an update on the fire arson from late Monday night? What can you add as to?
Yeah, and what I'll do is, for those that can't hear the question, I'll make sure that I repeat the question. An update on the fire investigation from Monday night, and I will turn that over to Chief Shaver with the fire department. Chief.
Just to clarify, that was Eastbrook,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
At this time, that fire is currently still under investigation. Like before, working with the CMPD detectives and my fire investigators were following up on a few leads and still working on that fire, so it's still under investigation at this time.
What was it about the investigation that determined it was arson?
Well, we haven't made that determination as of yet. As I said, it's still under investigation. We have not concluded or put a classification on that fire yet. Hopefully with the follow-up questions that our office has, we'll be able to classify it.
The police report says murder. Is the victim known to the suspect, or is the suspect been named or known? In the police report from that?
I don't know as far as the police report. I'd have to rely on CMPD answer the questions as to what was put into the police reports.
I got that, Chief.
No problem.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so just to follow up the question, that the police report had said that it was a homicide investigation, and with that, we do have our captain over our violent crimes division, Joel McNally, and he will be able to provide an answer for that. Captain McNally.
Yeah, so at this point, when there's a death that involves a fire, obviously that's not a natural death, and so homicide detectives are called in to work alongside arson investigators. We're working cooperatively right now on that investigation. It takes their expertise to tell us what the cause of the fire is exactly, and then that helps us make a determination on whether or not the death investigation goes towards accidental or homicide or something like that. So like Chief said, that investigation is still active and ongoing, and so we can't comment exactly on where that's going, but the reason that we're involved is because someone died in that fire. It's not a natural death, and so the homicide unit is included to help make that determination and then charge that case if it becomes applicable.
Captain. Any other questions?
Any update on the violence interrupter program, how that's been going and expansion in the works?
Yeah, the question is on the violence interrupter program. That's certainly one of the key components of our work, is the work that our community does to help with addressing violence whenever they see it prior to seeing that. So we certainly believe that is been a contributing factor to the relative decrease that we have seen in 2022 for our violent crime.
Any update in the attempted assault investigation in the McAlpine Park incident last month?
The question is the attempted assault at McAlpine Creek Park from this last month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I will turn that over to Major Foley.
Investigations continues to work that case. CMPD has prioritized patrols of all of our greenways across the jurisdiction. We're using dual sports and bicycle officers because they have the easiest way to access those areas. We've not seen any significant cases come forward since that time. However, we are still asking for the public's help and assistance in identifying anybody who is a person of interest. Again, if you're out on the greenways and you see somebody that's doing something very unusual behavior, and that voice in the back of your head says, this is not right, we need you to call us. Go ahead and make the 911 call. Allow us to come out, try and do your, again, we want you to avoid contact with someone. However, if you can give us as accurate a description as possible of that individual, that's what we'll use. Certainly, if you can keep eyes on that person and keep yourself safe to let us know where that person is, that's something that we want to know about. But we are still concerned about those cases. They are still active investigations. The department is working very hard with the city and county parks to make sure that those facilities are safe for people that are using those. Again, use good common sense. Those parks close at dark. You don't need to be out walking, running by yourself after dark. That's not wise. So, again, be smart. Help us to help you. Be safe. Thank you.
Short answer is we do not have an update on that case. Any other questions? All right. On behalf of myself, Chief Jennings, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, Chief Johnson, the Charlotte Fire Department, thank you very much for coming with you. We know we shared a lot of information, and we will post and share all the details and crime statistics with you shortly. Thank you very much, and have a great day.